Welcome to Upwards, sponsored by the Microsoft Aspire Experience, where we share stories and insights to help you grow 1% better in your personal and professional life every episode. Here are your hosts for today's episode, Jake Hewson and Alex Kessel.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for being here for another episode. I'm Jake Hewson in Customer Success here at Microsoft, and I am accompanied by my co-host who is rightfully introducing himself second, his emphasis on the co-part of host.
For this episode, we are joined by Diego Rejtman, and we're so excited to have him. Diego, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jake, for the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
For our listeners, would you mind giving just a brief little overview of who you are here at Microsoft?
Yes, I am a longtime Microsoft employee. I've been at the company almost 20 years. This January is going to be 20 years. I've defined by now my mission at the company is to share my sense of wonder. That's my mission in life as well. But to get to that point, I did like a lot of a broken road to get to that point, you know. So I worked as a software engineer in different teams and software engineering manager. I worked on, Messenger and Xbox and Outlook and SQL. Then I pivoted my career and I made an unconventional move to human resources. I spent 3.5 years there. Now I work on developer relations. And I've enjoyed it. It goes faster than you think.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy to think of how much time has passed since we joined the company here. And actually kind of brings me up to a memory that the first memory that I've had of our interaction was we're sitting in a room as new hires and you step up on a panel and start chatting with everybody. And then you say, you know what? Hold on. I've got a song to play for you. And right then and there, you whipped out a guitar and started playing and singing a song. I think about math. I'm not sure exactly what it was to everybody there. It was so awesome. We were all sitting there going, man, who is this guy? This is awesome. I think the sense of wonder was shared for sure.
I knew he was going to pull out the guitar.
It was a song about algorithms.
Algorithms, yes.
And I sing because it's fun, but perhaps I'm getting ahead of ourselves in terms of the interview. But the reason that I sing my songs is so that you can sing yours. And that's a statement that I have painted on my guitar, as you can see. It's something that I want to do to make the company a more human place. So if someone like me who's been here 2 decades, who is the general manager, is my official title, if that guy can pull out the guitar and play a song, then anybody can do it, you know? It's I do it. It's like a statement why I play the guitar.
I think that's a perfect segue into why are we even here? I mean, singing your songs so that others can sing theirs, so we can sing ours. I think your mission to make Microsoft and we can even loosely just say the tech world a more human place is, I think, a fundamental issue that has been unveiled in the last year and a half with pandemic and remote working, and people have suddenly realized that our workplace is so much more disjointed and a lot less human when we're only remote and when we're only, when we're not able to do these things. I mean, you can play your guitar on the phone call, but it's not going to be the same as in person, right? And so, on your mission, when you started thinking about making a more human place, where did you feel and when did you feel most disconnected from the others that you were working with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I've been reflecting back, and I've always, throughout these 2 decades, wanted to make Microsoft a more human place, a great place to work. But I would do that at a small scale, when I was in the Team Xbox, I would do it for that team on, my surrounding building and area. But when I actually joined university recruiting to lead global university recruiting at Microsoft, I realized that my team and we were about 200 recruiters, we were actually making a promise to these interns and graduates about what Microsoft can be for them. For you, Alex, for you, Jake, And I believe in truth in advertisement, and I realized that promise is generally true, but not completely true, because Microsoft is a huge place, 150,000 employees, thousands of teams, and you can land in some great place or you can land in a bad place. So that's where I felt a personal need to actually make the whole company like the best place to work, because my team, we were extending an invitation to 10,000 students every year to join the company. So if I'm selling a product, which is the Microsoft experience, I want to make sure the product is great. So to answer your question about disconnection, I felt that I would talk to many of the university students that joined the company after they joined. And for the most part, they were happy, but some of them would tell me stories of unhappiness. And I felt that disconnection between our mission, which is to empower the planet, to empower each other, and the reality.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. I'm interested, Diego, in, it's so funny, like meeting you, and I feel like every time we talk, when you express how you want to bring the human side to you and just make tech and corporate more human, like I just feel like that's like, it's weird to say, but I feel like you are one of the most human humans I've ever met. And it's just like, you've done so many things. You're at a very high level at Microsoft, but at the end of the day, you're someone that when I interact with or talk to, I know you're a human being, an awesome human being. And I guess like just through your journey through life in Microsoft, what has it taught you and how you've built relationships with the people around you? In terms of, I feel like you have a very unique perspective when it comes to building relationships, being human, and bringing that to you. I mean, like you mentioned, not every GM carries around a guitar. The first time I ever met you, I remember you handing out the comics, 3 of which I still haven't made it into the setup, but like it's very rare, I feel like. So I'm just curious what through your journey has taught you how you build relationships with those around you in such an effective way.
A great question, Jake. And, I once heard that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. So I'm now 44 years old, and I reflect back, and I realize that I've been on a journey to find my own humanity, because I loved science from a very early age, and I repressed everything about feelings, emotion, poetry. I went hardcore because of games into computers, math, how the universe works, I ditched spirituality, everything, and I went to that extreme, and as I was approaching 40, midlife crisis, which, it will happen to you guys in the future, I realized that I was not living a complete life. Part of who I was not coming through the surface, and my change to human resources and my mission to share this sense of wonder, it was part of my journey to be my complete self. In terms of relationships at a company like Microsoft, and if this is going to be on the internet, I would say any company like Microsoft, I would say that making friends is a must. Like, you need friends to succeed at the company at Microsoft. And the funny thing is that the company needs you to have friends as well. So when you have a strong, vibrant network, not only it's better for you, but it's better for the company, And the reason I want to say that is because making friends is something that needs to be intentional at a corporation. It's something that needs time and space. You have to make time. So you have to use part of your week that you could be using to produce work, to write code, to actually make friends. And space, you have to use, now we have the pandemic, but before that, you have to go find a place, to have lunch together. And some people feel like that is not the most productive thing to do. But when you look at your career in the long run, that it's like that network, that's how things happen, because you can do small things alone, but you cannot do big things alone. The moment you want to do big things, like launching an Xbox console or hire 10,000 students every year, you have to actually do it with others. And the time to make friends is before you need them, not when you need them,
Yeah.
Because, let's say you are on a team and there's another team and there's a conflict between those two teams. If you are the first time that you and the other person from the other team meet, that's going to be some tension there. But if you guys are buddies from before, it's going to be much, much easier, Same thing when you fall, when you are 2 decades or more on the tech industry, you're going to fall sometimes. You're going to have projects that get cut. You might get fired. You might have to fire others. You might get depressed. You might get, and you need that network for when you fall. But you reap what you sow. So you have to invest before you need it,
Yeah, no, that's an awesome statement. And make the friends before you need them, because, you can't panic make friends.
Yeah.
hold up a sign, say, I need friends really quick.
And in the pandemic, since you say, what the biggest enemy of making friends is, now that we are remote, this is going to be unpopular, but it's meetings with agenda. Like if you look at your meetings, except the one-on-one with your manager or something, there's always an agenda, and we have to stick to the agenda. And that is such a robotic way to operate that there's no room for the chit chat or to go places. Like now we don't have an agenda for this interview, so I'm sure we're gonna get places that we didn't expect. So plus one on having some meetings without agenda.
Yeah, I mean, you started to answer something I was just thinking about, and I want to dig deeper into it. I know on an agendaless meeting that I had recently with a team where we're working on a side project, we were sitting there and it quickly became apparent it was 7 p.m. and then it got to 8 p.m. And then somebody said on the call, wait, are we friends? Because it was now so far into the evening that we would not be doing a work call. Right. It is now a friendly call in that sense. And it was a funny moment, not only for that statement, but it was funny to think, oh my word, do I need to declare this? Like, we are friends, and
awesome.
Now I have to wear this tag or something. At the same time, I've wondered that too. And I've heard a lot of new people joining Microsoft wonder a similar thing, especially in this last year. So, agendaless meetings. What other advice do you have for just making friends here? I mean, you've been in for a little bit longer than we have, and I know personally I would benefit from knowing how to make friends again, right?
Yeah, here is like the point I really want to drive across, and for Microsoft employees listening to this, you can make this experiment. I've been 2 decades at the company, so a lot of people come and go, and I always pay attention to the goodbye emails. When someone leaves the company, they usually send the goodbye email. So I've gotten maybe a couple hundred of those, and 99% of them say the same thing, and that is like, as I look back, it was never about the products, it was never even about the impact or about the money, it's about the people. Because if you look at a corporation is not a real thing. It's something we agree it exists. There's no such thing as Microsoft in the real world. You cannot touch it. We all agree, okay, Microsoft is a thing, In the end, it's a collection of people, and the people that you meet along the way. So I just want to know, to know the road ahead, it's best to ask people coming back. That's how you know the road ahead. You ask the people. And if you look at those goodbye emails, people, what they value the most is the moments they had with the people. So in that sense, I want to reiterate this because folks, especially early in career, are so focused in completing their task list that they might feel like investing in making friends at the office, it's like unproductive or cheating, and it's not. To make a friend, be a friend. That's the way to make a friend. Now I'm in a position of influence as a general manager when I was head of university recruiting, and the ratio of people who contact me to ask me for something versus just to get to know me or to invest in the relationship, probably like 19-1. For every 20 people that contact me, 19 want something. Yeah. Can you hire my friend, or can you, I need advice on this or that. That doesn't really work long term. The relationship is a two-way thing, So that would be one of my advice, to see how you can be helpful to others versus how others can be helpful to you. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, it's interesting, and a quote that has always stuck with me around that is, that you can get everything you want in life as long as you help others get what they want. So it's tough, like getting so caught up in, priorities and trying to move forward, or seeking someone out for how they can help you, when, I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of, I feel like a lot of times we get lost in the not realizing the importance of how can we help this other person first, or regardless of if it's first, at least it being more of a two-way street. So that's interesting.
Sometimes we feel like, something is a means to an end, when actually the means is the end many times, So a relationship, you might think it's a means to an end, but as you grow older, you realize that the relationship was the goal, and everything else matters less.
And so did that play into, it sounds like you kind of went through a phase where you redefined success for yourself here at Microsoft, right? You kind of came out hard to the paint and moved forward, and now you're looking back and saying that I'm shifting my mindset towards one that's far more relational. That process, what changed for you?
Yeah, a great question.
I guess is the simplest way to ask that.
No, this is great. So first of all, like, life has stages, So there are times for different things. So if you guys are just getting started in your early 20s, like, it's okay to have that level of ambition of saying, okay, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I want to make money. I want to start a family. There are moments, in life, and I'm now at 44. I'm kind of on that coming back stage where I've done those things. But I will say that, tech companies hire, especially back in my day, hire people that are very self-driven, straight A students with a great GPA who accomplish a lot of things, and they have their own website and they're influencers and all that stuff. So by definition, it's people that have a high level of ambition. And then I think it's a maturity thing, that when you get those things, that's the paradox, like everybody knows the phrase that money cannot buy happiness. But unfortunately, most people don't believe it until they have enough money and say, okay, where do I buy the happiness now? And, and you can't do it, real wealth is measured on friendships. These are things that you only realize once you get to a certain point. So when I mentor younger folks, I realize that I say those things, but they don't really believe it. And there's not much I can do about it, because when I was told, I didn't believe it. But after I get those accomplishments, I dreamed of giving a TED Talk, and I did it. I dreamed of giving commencement speech, and I gave 2. And I dreamed of being financially secure, and I did that too. And now I look back at those dreams in a different way than before doing those things. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't legit to have those dreams, Because in the end, life, it's about finding yourself, who you are, defining who you are. And that stuff takes time. We carry a lot of baggage from our childhoods, and notions that the way we grew up, and we bring that to the office and to adulthood, and we never question those things. And then as life goes on and life punches you in the face and stuff, you start to say, okay, that thing that I was doing automatically, because it was like the way that I learned to behave as a kid before I even remember, for something that happened in elementary school or with my mother or something, then you start to question those things and you start to do the internal work. So that would be one advice that I want to give folks, which would be that you have to do both the external work and the internal work. So half of your time, I would say, yes, make friends, build a network, build expertise, watch Netflix, do all those things, even build a family, all those things. I would say, like, things from your skin out, but half the time you have to look at yourself, reflect, and because we think we know ourselves, but we don't really know ourselves. So much of us happens in the subconscious, and that's where sometimes it's not about achieving more, but it's about like needing less, being more at peace with yourself. So if you don't do that balanced way, life will let you know. If you focus on external a lot, life will let you know you might have some existential crisis and emptiness. And that was my case. If you only focus on internal and you accomplish nothing, that you cannot pay the bills. So life will also let you know. But that would be my take on what changed. What changed is I grew older, a bit wiser, and I accomplished the things that didn't make me as happy as I thought they would.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how you've drawn the relationship between the progress that we typically see ambitious folks chase after is actually enhanced by pursuing the relational aspect and the friend network. And that friend network is supported and enhanced by your self-awareness as well, the internal work that you put in. So that's a very fascinating insight.
Beautifully said.
Could probably draw a great picture about that, Diego. I can't wait to see it whenever you're done with it.
But to connect those two things, your network has monetary value. That's like when you invest in making friends at work, those are the people that are going to give you a job, in the future. Those are the people that are going to open doors for you and vice versa. So that is one way to connect those two things. But also your network is what gives meaning to your life. Evolutionary speaking, we are a social species, Mm-hmm. We need those relationships. You see in the movies in jail, when people are in jail and they want to punish them even more, like the worst thing they can do is you're going to put you in solitary confinement, and people can't take it because that's not who we are. That's not the type of animal we are. But doing the internal work, as you say, makes you a better friend. That's the thing, how I connect those two things. Because nobody want to be friends with a jerk, So, and we are not jerks on purpose. We're jerks because we're all broken people who are trying to stay sane, stay alive, And here's the thing: the more you improve yourself, is the more you improve the team. Like, if you work on a team, I want to improve the team. Okay, focus on improving yourself. That will, because these attitudes are contagious. And you asked me before about how the importance of how to choose the friends. Like, your friends are your future. This is also cliche, but I've seen it. I've lived it. The people you surround yourself with, like, those attitudes are contagious. And you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So you gotta edit your friends like you edit your social feed. Like when you're on Facebook and you don't want to see some type of news or some type of politics, and you say I'm gonna mute this particular person, then you need to do that in life too, and respect when people do it to you as well. We might not be a good influence to other people, and we have to respect that when they tell us.
I know you mentioned, Diego, like, it's so true. Like, for those that you mentor and you're at this point in your life, that people you mentor, they haven't really bought into put that focus more on relationships or the importance. It's like the grind and work on things. And then it's like you come back and you're like, damn, yeah, he was right. And I know you've had that realization. And like, I guess, like, what are your thoughts on in terms of, I think I agree. I think to some level, even for those that truly believe it, the importance of the friendships and networking in a corporate world, whatever varying level, I think there's always going to be that looking back, like, I wish I would have done more, or maybe I wish I would have even prioritized that at all. Do you have any thoughts on, like, someone that's listening right now that maybe they're just like, still, no, Diego, I don't buy it. I don't care if you play the guitar. I'm not buying it. Yeah. Or someone that is like, yes, I network. Like, what is something that someone could do right after this to just like take some action on that? Because I guess the theme is like, you need to do it for yourself to see it. You're not going to 100% listen to someone else when they say it. The proof is in the pudding. You got to do it for yourself. What's something that someone could do right after listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, I have bad news and good news. The bad news is that there are some things that only experience can teach you. That's it, like, I read a lot of books. You see the wall behind me. I collect quotes, collect learning. I'm trying to take every shortcut that I can. I read biographies because I watch more than 100 TED Talks because I say, okay, these people are putting their whole life into a TED Talk, into a 15-minute thing. But there's things that only experience can teach you. One thing is to know something, and one thing is to actually know something, And I once heard a quote that it shocked me, but it was, for things like, let's say like, losing weight. I read so many books on diets, losing weights and stuff. But the quote that says, to know something and not do it is to not know it. You're like, do I know how to stay in shape? No, because, I know the theory, stuff, but I don't know how to actually do it, because if not, I would have done it. So I don't really know, I know the theory. So that's the bad news, The other bad news would be that we will all have regrets. You talk about looking back. I wish I would have listened to Diego giving this advice. Regrets is part of human nature. If you are alive, you're going to have, and the more you live, the more regrets you're going to have. So the irony is that you should not regret regrets. Because if you're alive, you're a Homo sapiens, you're going to have regrets. So don't regret having regrets. Just accept them. It's part of life, Yeah, but something we can do is, here's what I would say, Microsoft and companies like Microsoft in the tech world have so many underleveraged resources. Like we have these things called employee resource groups, there's one for like Latinos employees like me, and there's one where people from the LGBTQ plus community get together, and there's one for parents at Microsoft. Anything you want, like every flavor of dimension. There's poker players at Microsoft even, and people don't go enough to those things. Those things have budget. When before pandemic, like there would be free food and stuff, and folks are so busy on their job that they don't leverage those things. So I would say, like, when you get those type of invitations, consider going. That's where you're going to meet your next colleague. That's where you're going to meet your next friend. That's where you might meet your lifelong partner, and that's something that you can do. So to me, it all comes down to that intentional, seeing it as something that you need for your mental health, the friendships. Yeah, that's something very concrete. Look at what type of clubs, groups there are, and join some of those.
Yeah, because, if you take the time to show up, whoever else showed up is also there looking to do the same thing you're doing, to build those relationships.
Totally. And like I gave a TED talk about this, which is the other thing that people can do is when you see someone you admire that inspires you, send them an email, write them a letter, give them a call. The whole world is at your fingertips today. Of course, if you write to, maybe you want to get in touch with Barack Obama or the Pope or, or I don't know, maybe like Justin Bieber, Bill Gates, you probably won't be able to do it. But in general, you can reach almost anybody, and you can ask them for some of their time to learn from them. And so anytime you see someone online that you're inspired, like that's something you can do. Contact them, and before you know it, you're in a relationship with those people. But I will say this also, because I build my network like that at a very accelerated pace. But there's a quote from a song that I've been reflecting a lot lately, which he says, I think it's a lullaby. It says, "Make new friends, but keep the old. The new ones are silver, the old ones are gold." I think it's very important as you make new friends and expand your network to keep the old friends alive, people who know you very well,
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like the toughest thing for me is purposefully going back to the connections I've already made to keep up, because it's like as you add more, sometimes you can forget to just stay in touch. But I found the times that I really have made it my focus to do that and continue to kind of rekindle those relationships. I mean, you're right, Diego. Those relationships are the ones that are definitely the gold.
Yeah, you need quantity and quality, I would say. Like what's going to determine your level of success, happiness, is the quantity and quality of your relationships, and you need both. And the other thing I would say is we have no idea how many hearts we are touching by our actions. Like someone's going to listen to the podcast, and maybe Alex, Jake, you're going to get maybe an email about it 5 years from now saying, wow, that one thing you said changed my life. And we have no idea, we are influencers. We don't know. Most time people don't close that loop, so that's something I also try to do. When someone touched my life, I try to, even if it's 10 years later, to close the loop and let them know. So you don't have to have a lot of contact with someone to actually change their life. when I moved to HR from Xbox, there was one particular person who was a die-hard Xbox employee. They have been in Xbox for like 15 years, never saw himself on any other job. He was more senior than me. And I had only exchanged words with him 3-4 times in my 6 years in Xbox. And he reached out to me. He moved to another team, completely different, reached out to me one time and says, I want to thank you because I changed teams because of you. And I hadn't even talked to this guy, And he said, when you make such a radical move, I said, well, if Diego can do it, why can't I do it? And he did it, and that gave a lot of new fuel to his life and his career. And I had no idea that I had that impact,
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Diego, we covered so much in this podcast, and you have I feel like an endless amount of wisdom to share, and based on your experiences, for any of our listeners that would just want to reach out to you, talk, learn more, stay up to date with what you're doing, how can our listeners reach out and connect with you?
I'm glad you asked. I'm actually pretty active on LinkedIn. That is a social network where I am trying to, that's the platform I'm trying to use to make the world a better place. And I'm very friendly there, so I accept most invitations. So please search my name on LinkedIn, send me an invitation. I'm likely going to accept. And I publish articles and videos and all that. So that would be one way. But I would say the wisdom is mostly borrowed from other people that came before me. It's not mine. But I'm developing my own as I go as well. One more thing I want to say. I want to commend the two of you who I know you have day jobs between quotes, and you are doing this, and you started doing this as a hobby. And I love that you were able to kind of make it part of your job. It's something that now Microsoft can benefit from as well. So you are getting to do the podcasting, and you're going to meet interesting people, and the company is benefiting as well. And that's the idea. That's when Satya Nadella, our CEO, when he says that you should use Microsoft as a platform to pursue your passions, this is a perfect example. You're pursuing your passion on Microsoft time, Microsoft resources, so you win, the company wins, and that's how it's done. And if all 150,000 employees would do this, the company would be 1,000 times better than what already is. So kudos, and thanks for being role models for others.
Thanks, Diego.
Thank you, Diego.
Means a lot. Learn from the best, right?
Learn from the best. That's right.
Well, Diego, I think we're right at the end of time here for content. Otherwise, we're going to cause too many headaches on the editing end. I have one question that I want to follow up with. For people who are really looking to build relationships here but are struggling to do so because of the virtual workplace, one sentence on how can we make friends right now where we're lacking so much physicality?
I know this is cliche, but I want to talk about vulnerability because I am someone who always wanted to project my best self into the world, And I learned that sometimes what I hide the most is what people find most interesting about me. My brokenness, my weakness, my issues, my problems, That's what helps me relate. So I think that if you go to someone and say, hey, I need a shoulder to cry on, I need an ear, I need someone to talk to, those people will be more open than if you go and like a salesman. Oh, let's build a network. I can help you. No. I think that vulnerability is what helps us connect because they are also broken. Everybody is broken in some way. We're all broken people, creatures, So when we acknowledge that brokenness to another person, then that's when the connection happens. That's when we don't feel alone. We don't feel alone in our anxieties, in our fears. We feel like connected to someone else and then support each other. And I'll finish with this Spanish quote that says, una mano lava la otra y las dos juntas lavan la cara, which means one hand washes the other hand, and then the two together can wash the face, So that's what it is about. It's about facing life, which can be tough, very tough, as a group together, That's kind of what it's about. Because we're more fragile than we think,
Boom. I love it. Such a good quote and way to wrap up. Thanks so much, Diego.
Thanks, Diego.
No, my pleasure. I hope some of this was useful. and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Wow. So much good stuff in that episode, Alex. And something that I've been thinking about since Diego mentioned it is so often we don't know how many people we've touched with the things we've done or views that we've shared out there in the world. And on the flip side of that, it's, well, how many people have touched you and you have yet to reach out to them? And I already have a handful of people in my mind that I'm absolutely, after this episode, just going to drop a note, an email, ping them, and just to let me know I'm thankful for X thing they've done and they've touched me. So I think anyone listening can think of at least one person that has touched them or made a difference that they haven't dropped a note or said thank you to. And I think it really just would benefit them and really make a difference if they did that. So that was a big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think going back to the beginning of the episode, the takeaway that stuck with me throughout the whole thing was the phrase he had on his guitar, "I sing my song so that you can sing yours." I think in the same vein that you're talking about letting people know that you've impacted them, also consider when we talk about how trying to make this place a little bit more human and inclusive and working through making friends to make ourselves and our environment a better place, consider the cost of you not doing this, right? It's going to hurt you and your experience, but it's also going to impact people around you. You know, if you want to hear other people's songs, play yours, right? Don't forget that a key component to this is you creating some of the space that you want to be welcomed into. And I think that's a big takeaway that, you know, framing everything that he brought to the table here, I'm just reminded of. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Upwards. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform and leave us a review. Learn more about the Microsoft Aspire experience at aka.ms/Microsoft Aspire experience. We'll catch you next time on Upwards.